painted on acrylic block
Oh,
and then
okay.
press the paper, sometimes usually wetting the paper,
Okay,
and pressing into the block, and that picks up the image.
so you press the paper on the block instead
Yes.
of the block on the paper?
Right.
Interesting,
The
okay.
block is not carved like a wood.
No, it's just it's a monotone. I'm painting right on top of the block, which is picking up whatever's on there. I like those, and those actually relate to me. I mean, they don't look like anything else that I do, but to me, it's in that process of, you know, when I paint them, you know, they're detailed. They're very using tiny little brushes, and there's lots of detail in these painting. And then I take this wet paper, go, you know, splatter it on there, and that's to me how they relate to this stuff. Is that I don't know, you know, it's this, and then what's under there.
Yeah.
It's in that space between that and this, and that stuff happens, and that's kind of how I feel when I go through the process of working in my studio.
And there's some palm trees here.
Yeah.
I guess you all are aware of that.
Now, let me ask you something, because that's really interesting. So when you press this wet paper, are you losing the original detail in what comes off?
Yeah, the way that I've been doing it, I'm not really a printer, so I don't know.
Yeah, but I think that's very interesting from a process point of view, that it's very, very detailed. You know, and then you lose that. You
Right,
basically are
most of it.
surrendering that by your own
Right.
process.
Right.
Which I think is really interesting.
Right. Well,
Do you ever do transfers?
I started to play around with that a little bit, actually. Yeah, I have a I didn't hang any in here, but I started to play a little bit with that, just with this acrylic medium I had, and I kind of started to play a little bit with transfers.
Okay, the only thing that I can think of that I sort of have, I'm sure there's been nothing to ask you about, but the use of the motors and to make things move, and is, you know, how does that sort of fit into the continuum?
I think again, to me, a lot of this it's art, and what I do, art is about context.
Is about what?
Context. So it's like where something is, what's around it, and how it changes its meaning. So for me, I love to take these little bits of things that are really nothing to me and play with when does it become something. You know, when I'm doing those tiny little paintings that I do, like the ones in the little box in there, when does this become something? When does it just when does meaning happen, basically?
Mm-hmm.
And so
It's how it relates to something.
it's how it relates to something.
Yeah.
So that's really what this is all about. And the motors is just add another element in movement. What happens when something moves?
Right.
When it turns around, it's like a silly little, wow, mom, wow, and then how does that, what happens here and here and in between when that turns upside down?
Right.
So I like just adding that element in the light too. I love the shadows because they're not really anything. There's something that's not there, and yet it becomes something. So that's really close to me to sort of what it's about. It's nothing. It's a shadow isn't anything, right? It's not really anything, but then it becomes something.
Yeah.
So that's really what it's all about.
Now, when you were installing this, towards the end, we had a little exchange about the pencil lines that you left in on both the big wall that's opposite this wall right here and in the circular thing with the photographs
Right.
that's in the alcove. And I'm sure you remember what you told us about that. Well, we remembered. You told us something about wanting to make your process transparent.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think what I like is, a couple things. One thing I like in the studio, the art studio. I love going to other artist studios, and I like my own studio, and I like seeing art there because there's not such a separation between you and it, and that's where it is. And so bring that kind of spontaneity and that kind of, transparency.
Close to your creative process, I guess.
Yeah, somebody said, I think it was you that said, you look at some of my art and you say, well, I could do that, right?
Right.
Right? You said, oh, I could do that. Right? You looked at something, I think, and you could, I mean, in a way. So it's very simple stuff, and I kind of like that people would think that. You know, it gets strips away sort of all the things and the stuff to get to sort of what it's about.
Any other questions?
So, oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Not referring to the oil on panel or the 3D pieces that display on the other side of the wall here, the flat, like staggered. Have you ever done any permanent installations like that?
Permanent installations? No. I had one installation a few years ago.
What?
You mean like solid wet, you mean?
Yeah, or like somebody would wallpaper a bathroom, not so much a bathroom, any room, like an area or something.
No, I love to.
You do it like every while?
I would do that. The closest thing I ever did, I did, I had at the Angelica Theater in the city.
Yes.
I had this, they were bigger pieces, but I did something like that on a larger scale above their cafe, and that was up for some time. So it was a lot of stuff that kind of went like, it was a bigger scale, but it went like this, so things came out, things were hanging on each other, very similar to that wall right there on a larger scale, and that was there for a few years, but that doesn't count as permanent. But no, I like that idea.
I have a question.
Has it become permanent?
No, I had to come and get it.
How did it come about that you did an exhibition in Beijing?
In Beijing. Oh, that was cool. I have a good friend I met at Purchase, Yi Chen, who's this really wonderful painter. And he met, I don't know how, I think it was through the gallery where he was showing at the time, this young woman who had a space in Beijing. She comes from a family, her grandmother was a very well-known actor in China, and so she had a little bit of money and she had a space and she was showing some art there, and he took her to the studio really just like socially, just to hang out and see the art. I didn't know her, and she really liked it, and just from there she wanted to bring me and the stuff over. She liked the scale, she thought that people, you know, that she knew, and the artists and the, you know, in Beijing and in China would appreciate the scale, but also how I like put things in boxes and in things. She loves those little boxes of things, and that seemed to make sense to her. So I did that. I went over and did a show with her there, and that was pretty exciting.
That must have been quite an experience.
It was great. I only went for 8 days, and it's a long trip. And I basically lived in the gallery. It was like a little apartment. It was in an office/apartment building, an interesting little space. And I lived there for 8 days and did, you know, worked and made things and hung the show, and you know, went out and tried to find lunch and breakfast on my own. Really fun. I ended up eating a lot of street food because I could, you know, point and like, people were lining up. That's where I would go.
Right?
But she was great. She would come around every day about 4 o'clock to check on me and hang out a little bit and do, you know, do her emails and stuff, and then take me out with some friends or whoever to get something to eat. And
Did you make everything there, or you
I
brought?
made a lot of stuff there. I couldn't bring as much stuff as I usually bring. I had a suitcase basically packed with stuff, lots and lots of little things like this. A couple of pieces, but I made most of the stuff I made there.
That was a big exhibition. That was a lot of work.
It was. Well, I had the 5 days
You've seen
doing
pictures?
nothing but that.
I've seen the pictures of his
Yeah.
exhibition. Yep,
Great.
yep. I think you can see them online too.
Yeah.
If you Google Craig, you can see it online.
Well, Craig, thank you
Yeah,
so
thanks.
much. And Craig will be sticking around, so if you want to ask him about specific pieces or ask some follow-up questions, please do so. Thanks.
Thank you. You're great.